do is just give you update on some of the things going on. You probably read in the paper just a couple of days ago the project that we have been working on for a very long time, the Havasu 280 project, mainland launch ramp, etc., the Havasu Riviera. It's a project that the community has been asking for some 20 plus years, to have a mainland launch ramp that is on the south side of town. Well, finally, through the help of Representative Borelli and many other individuals, it looks like we have a deal. So what we're waiting for now is the final agreement between the developer and Arizona State Parks before we then start mapping out we know where the road's going to go, but before we start putting a shovel in to build the road, start the infrastructure. We also have to complete a development agreement with the developer itself to make sure that the city is repaid for any improvements we make on their behalf. This project is quite honestly a very exciting project. It will include a launch ramp, some courtesy slips. It will include a dry boat storage, a restaurant, a convenience store, and other amenities. There's more seats up here, Joan, if you wish. So it's really exciting. It's what is really needed to trigger the development of that entire area. So the city, with a different private entity, hopes to put in a Phoenix-style botanical gardens, as we've talked about before, a eco-environmental center, which will be used by the various agencies on the lake, as well as our school system and ASU, to begin doing some additional studies on Lake Havasu. Some people go, well, why do we need to bother with that? Lake Havasu is a fairly young lake. It was created in 1938 when the Parker Dam was completed. But the lake is changing, and nobody really quite understands whether or not it's the natural maturation process of a lake, or is it caused by some other phenomena. And since that lake serves 30 million people for drinking needs, we have to make sure that we know why it's changing, and if we have to react to that, we're able to react to that. So we're going to be that's one of the reasons for the Eco-Environmental Center. There's also an area that everybody notices on there for a golf course. I would tell you that's probably a placeholder more than anything else. Whether or not a golf course actually goes there, if it did, it's going to be a long, long time from now. But more importantly, from the standpoint of new jobs and also some help, if you will, on the monthly bills for our sewer system, would be roughly 700 homes that would be below all of that. It's a piece of private property that's been private for decades, and it's the same developer, by the way, that did the Havasu Foothills Estates. So they're well known in the community, have done a great job. From my standpoint, working with them, they're very good folks to work with. They will also have a commercial area there as well. So we're excited. What we're waiting for is the developer and state parks to iron out some final details, and they really are details, and I'll give you an example. The way this agreement works, there'll be some revenue sharing, and so finally now the lawyers are looking at it, of course, and saying, well, what if Arizona State Parks sells an annual pass down in Karsten Caverns? How does that work when it comes to the Havasu Riviera, since that pass is good for all parks? So it's those kinds of things that they've got to work out. Conversely, what if The new launch ramp at Contact Point sells an annual pass that's used for all Arizona state parks. Who gets that revenue? So they're just trying to work out those details. I suggested they just put together a matrix with all the possibilities and then split it up and let's get moving. So we're, as I said, we couldn't be happier. We know it's a done deal, or Governor Ducey wouldn't have had a quote in there. So they don't let him quote on anything unless this is a done deal. We did have an interesting trip. We had to go down, Representative Borelli and I went down to make a presentation in front of the Arizona State Parks Board for their final approval. And of course, just before we're getting in the car and on our way there, we get a call from State Parks indicating that we really want you to be there and we want you to say a few things, but the Arizona Attorney General has decided that the Parks Board has no authority to approve this contract. And we're like, okay. I said, so who does? Oh, state procurement. Great. So who do I have to talk to? What hoops do I need to jump through to get this done? And they basically said, well, for the most part, it is done. So no worries. Just get up there and explain what the project's all about, which is exactly what we did. So we're thrilled. The other big issue that we've been dealing with is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service issue on the lake. You probably know by now that the service has dropped their compatibility determination. The compatibility determination was the document where they were explaining the additional restrictions they wanted to add to the lake. The determination, quite honestly, was not particularly well written, because on one hand you could interpret it that no significant new restrictions were going to be placed on the lake. But if you read it literally in some sections, it was quite clear that they were going to put a no-wake zone for a 17-mile stretch. The service will say that was never our intent, but I always, when I got to talk to them, pointed to the document under their stipulations, and I said, read what it says right here. And the only thing I would get is, it's rather unfortunate it was written that way. Yeah, well, that's more than unfortunate. The good news is they've decided to drop that. The bad news is they still haven't moved the buoys back that they moved a year ago, that half-mile stretch, into what's known as the ride spot. I sent an email to Regional Director Tuggle a couple of weeks ago. I did not get a response, so I sent it to one of his staff members saying, this is what I sent. Maybe I have the wrong email address, but I really do want to reply. And about a half hour later, the phone rang. And he plans to come up here. We're going to have a meeting. I specifically asked him, are the buoys that you moved a year ago back under discussion to moving them back to their original position? He has promised me that is under discussion, or would be open for discussion. We as a city are more than willing to partner with them to create additional access points for kayakers if that is the issue in safety or whatever. I mean, for us, spending the money for an access point is far cheaper than driving away our tourists and ruining our economy. So he was very pleased with that. And so we're hoping to have a meeting here in Lake Havasu City within the next 30 days. And so we'll see how that goes. But we're adamant that it really needs to, those buoys need to be moved back. What was interesting was then I got another email from them saying, we just want you to know that some buoys got moved and we're moving them back. We had an overzealous worker that was moving a bunch of buoys, and we're moving them all back. We really apologize. What it was telling me was they thought that compatibility determination was a done deal, and they were moving the buoys to comply with that, and then somebody had to tell them, we dropped that. So you got to move them back. So they had them all moved back within about a 24-hour period. Okay, another topic. We've been working to create additional fields for our youth throughout the city. This year, we anticipate designing, engineering, and completing the construction of the fields that would be at Cypress Park. Okay, Cypress actually belongs to the school district, if I remember correctly, but it's a great place for soccer fields, and so we're going to get that all completed this year. New soccer fields, bathrooms, lighting. I think we're going to have a concession stand available. It'll be a really nice improvement. Then we're going to focus, and we're already beginning that, but we're going to focus on constructing a ball field complex at Sarah Park. We're going to start engineering and design this year, and construction will probably start the following year. That is a major project, but it will alleviate some of the congestion we have for our youth and trying to find a ball field to play on. It will also bring in some tournaments that everybody wants to see happen. Instead of all our kids always having to travel, we'll be able to have them here. It will connect to the other ball fields. And it's really probably the best place for it. We did have some discussion of maybe going to the north. But the south side and in a already existing park is really the right answer. Not to mention, we just finished putting in a ring of water available for that entire park that it's never had before. That cost was $750,000. We literally before were using PVC pipes to just bring water to wherever it was needed. And I used to chuckle because Dub Campbell, who pretty much he and along with the Friends of the Fair built the rodeo grounds, would tell me that it seemed like every time somebody flushed the toilet, one of the PVC pipes would break somewhere, and he'd be chasing around trying to get it fixed. And so we said, yeah, unfortunately, it's been 30 years of patchwork. So we finished that ring, and now that we'll be able to bring the necessary water to the area. And ultimately, we're going to run an effluent line, a reclaimed water line, to that park, so that we won't be using regular water. We can use effluent. And but you know, it just takes time and, of course, money. But we would like to be able to do that at all of our parks, as well as the schools. So that is well on its way as well, and we're excited about it. You've probably seen kids using the splash pad downtown. We finally got a state permit for it, so we were allowed to turn it on. It had been built for a year and a half, and now we're doing two things. We're adding bathrooms, permanent bathrooms, and we're adding shade structures for that, because it does get a little warm out there, even if you're splashing around in the water. But it's amazing how many families have been using that little splash pad area, so it's really kind of cool. Finally, and then I'll open it up for questions, Vision 2020. As you know, we're one of the 8 finalists in the America's Best Communities competition. We've put in our initial requirements, which was a budget on how we were going to spend the $100,000 that they gave us, plus the monies that the community has raised on our behalf. We had to put in metrics. In other words, here is what we believe we're going to accomplish and at what dates, and we get measured on that come next year. You're allowed to move those things around, but frankly, what's probably going to occur is that we'll probably all be gathered with the other 7 cities in a meeting somewhere in the United States, and to celebrate winners and those who may not make the top 3. We hope we certainly do. The group has been working very hard. We have added another 20 members, roughly 20 new members to the ABC team, which is important, because one of the things that we have been working on is that, or telling the judges, is that what we really need to do is create a workforce in our city. The average age, as I've said before, is 53 in our city. The average age in the United States is 37. So when you're trying to attract companies to come here, they're saying, well, where's the workforce? Where you lack a workforce. So we are working to create our own workforce, and we're also making sure that our ABC team reflects the age group that we're trying to attract. So what we literally did is that virtually all 20 of the new ABC team members are under 40. And because when we looked at our other before, they were all my age, and it was like, oh, we didn't think through this, did we? And then we added a co-champion to each one of the pillars that also was one of the new members. So we're working on several things. Entrepreneur Outreach Network is up and running. We've already completed initial classes for that. We're beginning the mentor network for it. One of the jobs I have right now is to identify about 10 local companies that have either a good product or service, want to grow, not really sure how to grow. So we're going to try to identify those and put mentors around those companies to help them get to the next level. Because the whole idea is that if they have 4 employees, they want to grow, then hopefully they can get to 8 employees. And you do that with 10 companies, now you've got 40 new employees. And so we're trying to build from within, because it's been so difficult to convince companies that want to move here that we can satisfy their workforce needs. We've lost, I've mentioned one before where it was a call center, 200 employees wanting to get to 600, decline. Said we'd be lucky to get to the 200. We recently had a major manufacturer of glass want to come here, chose not to. Again, workforce issues, moved to another part of Arizona. And so we're going to deal with that. And also as part of 2020, we're to create that environment where young people want to be in Lake Havasu City. We're going to work very closely with ASU. Charlie and I met with their recruiters from Tempe to talk about what we need to do to help them recruit students to the area. We mentioned to them our idea of a significant downtown project that would create a gathering spot, and they thought that was absolutely important. Much, if you've ever been to Tempe and you go down to Mill Avenue, much the same way. And so we're working on that, and the concept would be that it would be an area downtown where it would have shops and restaurants, pubs, ice cream parlor, coffee shop, whatever. But then there would also be kind of this little amphitheater area with trees, shade structures, Wi-Fi, music, so that people would gather there, people of all ages. And then we want to create some connectivity to the ASU campus itself, so that the students don't have to wind through empty lots, go behind buildings. There'd be literally a path to get to it. And so we're trying to do that. And so this whole Vision 2020, as you can see, isn't one or two ideas. It's quite lengthy and very comprehensive, and we're hopeful. So with that, I think I'm going to just open it up for questions, and if I forgot something, I'll bring it up later. Yes, sir.
Could I ask one real quick? I've been
Sure.
here about 3 years, so
Uh-huh.
I'm one of the new kids on the block. We're permanent. But I have this question. I love to go to the balloon festivals and the rest of it. We have a lot of good activities out on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And I love McCulloch's Bridge, the London Bridge.
Sure.
By chance, has anybody checked to see if our British cousins want to sell another one? Because we do need that entrance and exit from that island, especially when you've got high-density traffic, such as the balloon festival.
Right.
Somebody has a heart attack, or on a bleeding weekend managed to try and amputate their leg with an alcohol infusion.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to get on and off that island fast, and that worries me. Waiting for a chopper to come in, it's a good idea, but it's a little dangerous. And I don't want to build a road per se. I'd like to see another bridge out there.
Right.
Well,
Well,
they're more expensive, but
Well, to answer your question, for major events, we do station paramedics and whatnot out on the island because we recognize the importance of doing so.
right.
We would love to have a second bridge. We even went so far as to buy the property where it would land on at a cost of $3.7 million. We bought that 6 years,
Long
7
time
years
ago.
ago, yeah. I know I was mayor when we bought it, so it's been a while.
Still have the property.
We still own the property, and before the Great Recession, we did have developers that were interested in building the bridge, creating a toll, collecting the toll until they got paid back, plus whatever profit they were demanding, and then turning it over to the city. A lot of people have said, well, why don't you make the developers on the island build the bridge? Good luck with that, because under Arizona state law, that is incredibly difficult to do. And if you think about it, if it's 400 homes, that bridge is going to probably cost $15 million. So every home would have to pay $37,500. That's probably not going
A
to.
$2 million home, what big deal is that?
Well, actually, there's very few $2 million homes out there. Most
$1
of
million home, what big deal is that?
Most of them are in the range of $250,000. There are some others that do run $1 million, but the point is, why should only 400 people have to pay that fee if everybody's going to use the bridge? The most fair way to pay for that bridge is through a toll. You want to use it, you pay the toll. You don't want to use it, you don't pay the toll. It's pretty much the simplest way. But even then, as I said, when it comes to development fees, under Arizona law, the development fee process has, thanks to the Central Arizona home builders, has become so complicated. We used to have a fee for the island and had to stop collecting it because it was just too complicated. They made you do studies every couple of years, and by the time you were done, everything you collected got spent on studies. So we would still like to see a bridge. We would love to entertain having somebody build it and create a toll. What we would probably need to do, though, is that bridge would have to have very easy access off of Highway 95. Think about what our visitors do today. They get off at Mesquite, they come up, they make a right, they go down a block, make a right, go across the bridge, and there's traffic everywhere. If you had a bridge that you could literally go from 95 straight across onto the island and someone's charging you 75 cents or $1, they'd take it in a heartbeat. I would take it. And what we would have to do is make it, most of these tolls these days are all electronic. You could accommodate those who live on the island by having a special fee for them. So there's a lot of things that we can do. It's just finding that company that's interested in doing it, because after the Great Recession, those requests quickly dried up. And we are pursuing, I've asked the director of our Metropolitan Planning Organization, you see it in the paper, called the MPO, to begin doing a study about how we can get that second bridge started. Because I agree with you that nobody wants to see a public safety hazard occur and we're not able to deal with it. Now, it hasn't yet, but as traffic, more and more traffic, the London Bridge needs help, needs some help, it needs some relief. What we still haven't decided, but probably what would happen is that it'd probably be, you could do a couple things. You could do one way on, 2 ways off, or vice versa, just depending on what the needs are. You can actually reverse that in the middle of the day if you had a big event. So that's where we're at. But we do have the land, and we are open for anybody interested in getting that built and moving forward with it. Steve?
I want to comment on the splash park. I'm down there quite a bit, and it's just amazing how long people will play there. I mean, right up until dark. Families are just having little picnics while the kids play. It's really a great addition to the downtown. And also, kind of a two-part question. I know there was talk about plans for other permanent restrooms in the downtown. Is that still in the plans?
Yes.
Also, would ASU be willing to partner with that open space and retail space that?
I don't know the answer to that. My guess is probably not. But what we hope to do with that open space is actually partner with a private entity where they would build all the retail space, and then we could acquire enough property to do the amphitheater. And because in the end, wherever the public gathering spot is, we want control over it so that it doesn't change. We don't want it to be a gathering spot for 6 years and then somebody says, well, let's build more retail or some condos. No, we want it to, so the only way to do that is that the city controls the property.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
So, yeah, and it again, it costs money, but if it, again, creates that environment where that investment brings more investment to town or more students to town who obviously spend money, then we get paid back that way. And the businesses do better.
It's a great idea for the downtown, especially with all the improvements that's been going on by property owners,
Right.
private businesses. So.
Right. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Did you make any changes to the zoning codes?
Which ones?
Well, how you can maintain your property.
Oh, are you talking about the front yard area? We did not. And we did not because when, as I said in the council meeting, if it were up to me, I would disallow certain vehicles or whatever in the front yard setbacks. But the community said very differently. And while there's some people that would agree with me, the majority said, we don't want any additional restrictions. So
We should vote on it.
well, the only way for that to happen is that you would have to bring a referendum. The city council cannot put that on the ballot. I asked our city attorney if we could, and that way we could decide once and for all, and it isn't 7 people trying to judge the other 53,000. And the answer I got was a citizen would have to do that on behalf of the community.
Most cities, at least, it has to be a registered vehicle and operational, not.
That's no, ours is the same way. That's the way ours is. If it's operational and registered, it's okay. If it's not, you just make a phone call and we deal with it. So that's the same as our city. That has not changed.
Regarding her question, if the city required or stated you cannot park vehicles in your yard such as in gravel, and they passed that, then who's going to pay for widening the streets so you can have on-street parking? Who's going to put the curbs, the gutters, and the sidewalks so you can have on-street parking because you can't park in your yard?
Yeah.
That's where some people don't bring up, you know, it's just the idea, hey, you can't park in the yard, but where are you gonna park? The city's gotta allow or provide on-street parking.
Well,
Curbs, gutters, and sidewalks.
the suggestion was that the parking would be allowed on the side yards. It's just not in the front setback area.
With a lot of lots in this house, there is no side access to
And
it.
in some cases, that is true.
I thought that over.
The house
So-
is built too big.
Yeah, so,
You can't,
but in the end, we could have this discussion all day long,
And we have.
and we have 3 times since I've been mayor,
Yep.
and the community has said, we don't want any changes, period.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Question, you know, just, we see a lot of, we have to thank California for all their public employee retirees that come over here and enjoy their retirement. But during the study of the 2020 and everything that's going on, the metrics and the analytics, how do you supply the needs for the youth to come and stay here and do that? I mean, what kind of process?
How do you lower that age?
Yeah. How's that work?
It's very, very difficult and time consuming. But basically, you start with the premise that if you don't create an environment that young people are attracted to, then you'll never get them. A good book to read is called When the Boomers Bail. It's an excellent book. And it basically says that those communities that are able to attract a younger workforce will be the winners. Those who don't will die on the vine. And because the old model was you go out and find a company willing to move to your city and the workforce will follow. In today's environment, it's just the opposite. Younger people are looking for places that they can live with a lot of amenities. Quite honestly, they can telecommute, use their computer, whatever. They don't necessarily have to show up to a building or an office. And companies then will follow those individuals. Now, the reason this issue is happening is people like you and I, the baby boomers, we didn't have enough kids to replace ourselves in the workforce. So those highly skilled individuals, companies are chasing them. There's always going to be enough workforce for the $8 an hour kind of situation. But so from our standpoint, we've got to do a number of things. Besides the basic amenities of whether it be a downtown project or whatever, we've got to improve our infrastructure when it comes to technology. We have to make it very easy to be able to, at any place, use your computer to do business. we have to let people know it's quite honestly, it's a great place to live. I mean, there are a lot of them. I mean, how many communities do you have? The mountains, you have the lake, you have trails. I mean, you name it, we've got it. We just have to make sure people understand it and exploit it. I mean, we do need additional amenities like the ball fields, additional trails that people can use to enjoy themselves. You know, you go to some of these planned communities throughout Arizona, and the first thing they're doing are building trails because people like to take their morning walk and get their exercise or whatever. So we need to do all of that. But it is a process. And that's why also we are training entrepreneurs, because in our community, 68% of the companies that exist here have 5 or fewer employees. And so what we want to do is show them how to grow. And we have a great group of people my age who have been in business a long time that can be mentors for them. And I mean, I just met with one it was last week. And we've got him back on the right track. He has 13 employees. And we're going to help him show how he can export his products, market his products, so that he can now get to 20 employees, because his products and his ideas are phenomenal. And but he just doesn't know. You know, he's one of these guys that is great at research and development and putting together a product, but then doesn't know how to get it out there to the marketplace. That's not a whole lot different than when I worked in Silicon Valley and I worked with these startups, you know, young engineers coming out of Stanford or Berkeley or wherever, and they had great ideas, but they had no idea how to market their product. You know, we would literally walk them, we'd get their business plan, walk them over to a venture capitalist, get them funding, get them moving, but then we would make sure that they had all the right professionals so that they could focus on the research and development and being creative and let everybody else move that business along.
At one point, we had some commercial air service.
We did.
Limited, but
Right.
does that impact our availability to grow at all? Because I hear some people say, well, you know, if I could just catch a flight in and out a lot easier, then I would be more apt to, well, and that's probably limited, but is there any effect?
Well, what that person said is absolutely correct. Unfortunately, the reason the Mesa Airlines left is because it was only 1 or 2 people on a plane that was holding 19, and once the subsidies that they were receiving disappeared, so did they, simply because they said, how do you run an airline with 2 people on the plane? It doesn't work. The only way we're going to get commercial air service, and it's funny, we had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman, and is ASU to grow, because mom and dad want to get here quickly to go see the kids, and businesses, young businesses need to grow, because when we're able to create business travel and can put more heads on those planes, the airlines are more interested in coming to us. Bullhead City has been trying to get an airline for 10 years and unsuccessful. And they keep getting this close. But when the metrics are examined and the number of people that are going to board that plane are examined, there isn't enough for an airline to say, we can be profitable there. And I would love, I wouldn't care if the airline went to Bullhead or Kingman or Yucca. That's closer than Las Vegas. But all the communities don't have enough business travel to make that work. And frankly, Kingman's only an hour from Vegas for the most part. So they probably would never get that kind of commercial. They do have an airport authority that's more of the planes that are bringing in cargo and whatnot. But until we're able to build that business community and the ASU community up, I don't think somebody's going to pull the trigger. Chuck?
A couple of things. On the Mesa Air thing, I'll give you our experience. Our daughters were sitting at Ontario Airport with 13 other people to get on the last flight to here.
Right.
They called them up and says, and this was at 10 o'clock at night, we canceled the flight, we can't get back over there, you know, so on and so forth.
Right.
They were supposed to fly from here to there, pick those people up. They left 15 people stranded in Ontario Airport. They had to struggle to get to here.
Been there,
Our daughters
done-
got in their cars and drove here.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So to me, Mesa Air was just run bad.
Well, they didn't want a deadhead.
Yeah,
They didn't want a deadhead. That's what it boiled down to.
well, that's beside, but that was my experience with it.
Right.
The other thing, on Contact Point, you had stated about there's going to be some courtesy docks. Is there not going to be a marina there?
This developer is not going to be responsible for building the marina. The marina is a separate project in a different part of the overall Contact Point Park. Initially, it's only going to be the launch ramp.
There'll be boat storage then.
Yeah, there'll be boat storage.
Yeah, that's all on land. The restaurant, the convenience store, that's all
Right,
gonna be
but
on
the
land.
marina itself would be a separate project in the future.
And where would it be?
Oh, it would be a little, best way I could
north.
describe it, a little closer to the highway, because there's kind of this cove, and so here would be the launch ramp, and then as you get close to the highway, the marina would be in that general area.
There's a dock down there now, down below the Water Safety Center.
Right.
The dock where the sheriff's boats and we keep the fire boats and things down there. That's the area where the marina would ultimately go.
The other question was that on the, you said you're gonna build that center, you know, the one that studies the lake and all that. Is fishing, Arizona Fish and Game still thinking about maybe putting something in there to like sell permits, you know, hunting permits?
Right, that's the whole idea, is to allow the various agencies to have a place that they can conduct business, so that we don't have to travel to wherever, Kingman, wherever, right. Yeah, so that's the whole idea.
The other question I had was on the lake thing, the channel. Now, you said that, and this is where I get confused. You said they don't want to put any more restrictions on the lake. Now, does the lake stop at where you go through the gorge that the Marine Association dug and you go up into that area up there? Or do they consider that whole area Lake Havasu?
Well, they can only put the restrictions where the wildlife refuge is. They can't go just put something out in Thompson Bay.
Right.
So wherever the wildlife refuge boundaries are is where they have jurisdiction.
Where does that end, coming into the lake?
I don't have a map in front of me. I can't tell you exactly. I know it's on the other side of the bridge up on 40 because that's the Topak Marsh.
That's the Topak, exactly.
Right.
But you
So
don't know where it ends this side of the lake?
at the end of the ride spot, I believe,
Yeah, it's,
Okay, now,
yeah.
roughly.
up there where the refuge and all that is, where the homes and the golf course and that is?
Yeah.
Now, is that part of the wildlife refuge there?
Some parts of it are, yes.
Okay.
Some parts of it. Yes, sir.
I got a couple of them. One of the main things for Havasu to attract manufacturing stuff is you're going to have to improve the highway from here to 40. It's going to have to be 4 lanes each way, or 2 lanes each way, I mean, because when there's an accident, the traffic is tied up for 4 hours, 6, 8 hours, 10 hours at a time. People don't like that. If I was coming down here to put a big plant here, I'd look at that highway and say, I don't want it here, I can't get access to 40. It takes too long to get from here to there.
Well,
The city's gonna have to push to get that 2 lanes each way.
yeah,
all
yes
the
and
way.
no. First of all, a good part of it is now 2 lanes. But guess what? Even at 2 lanes, how many times do you watch on the news, Highway 10 is closed?
Oh, yeah, it happens.
Exactly. You just made my point.
But the second thing, next thing, before you get into it, I have to drive up Papago every day. And at the bottom of Papago and Havasu Avenue, there's a place where they've cut across Papago a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I don't know who put the cut in, and I don't know who patched it, but why doesn't the city make them patch it right the first time? Do it right the first time and not come back and do it every year again? The city, somebody's been out there with city trucks and patched them things every year because somebody didn't do it right the first time. And when the city does it, they don't do it right the second time. So
Well-
they gotta fix it every year. How come that is?
Well, I guess we can look at that area, because I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not,
Well, they tore up the one at the corner. They tore a big hole in the ground 6 months ago. And they've been out there and fixed it 3 times
yeah,
in 6 months.
yeah, I'm guessing we tore it up because of a water issue, but,
Yeah, but
well,
what is fixed
so it's
right the first
Papago, Papago and what?
And Lake Havasu Avenue, right? at the
Okay.
bottom.
We'll
Cross
take-
Mason,
we made it
campus.
up.
Huh?
We'll look at it.
Yeah, we'll look at it, no problem. Yes, sir.
It's more of a general question.
Sure,
If I knew the answer, I wouldn't ask the question.
that's okay.
You know, I think as a realtor here, a 30-year second homeowner and a 5-year full-time resident now, one of the most frustrating things for us, and I hear this from everybody I talk to,
Sure.
is lack of some of the big box stores here. And when you do the demographics on Havasu, just the demographics, such a high percentage of the people that spend a lot of time and money here, like I used to be, don't list this as their primary residence. So I'm wondering what actions we have done, will do to do an alternate demographic study that takes into account not only the people that call Havasu home, but the people that spend a lot of time and a lot of money here, specifically the snowbirds and the summer visitors. That, for instance, would you like to have a Costco? Oh my God, if we had a Costco, this town would be perfect. You'd never have to leave. Oh, do you want Trader Joe's? Oh man, there's been petitions for Trader Joe's. Everyone wants Trader Joe's. Albertsons leaves, Hagen goes bankrupt. Oh, hopefully we'll get Trader Joe's. So we've all had those conversations. I know you guys have those conversations.
Sure.
My point is, sitting in front of somebody that makes a decision on who's gonna build that big box store, and we talk about 53,000 residents, average age this, average income that, has no correlation whatsoever to what the true demographic profile really looks like of the people that spend money in this town. The guy that's got the $300,000 boat sitting up his house in the foothills, but his primary address is in California or Phoenix or Vegas. How do we create that alternate demographic study, number one? Number two, how do we create a commission that's gonna go sit in the offices of the people that are making these real estate decisions for these big box stores? Because that's also a part of why a lot of the younger people don't wanna live here, because they don't wanna drive 153 miles to the nearest Costco or 162 miles to the nearest Trader Joe's. Happen to know those numbers off the top of my head. I do it, okay? But the point is that those kind of things in addition are also the kind of things that say people would say, hey, I would want to be here. I might want to live here. I might want to raise my family here. I know it's a chicken and egg thing, but it seems like a proactive approach to that with some alternate demographic studies that we could go and put in front of people and say, this is not just what's on paper, but what we truly believe our profile looks like in this town.
Yeah, the answer is, we've done all of that. But the big box stores evaluate their own demographics and whether they can be successful. They're very scientific about it. Costco is a great example. One of the things they'll tell you is that they want to be successful for a Costco, roughly 250,000 residents within a 1 hour's drive. We have 220,000 in all of Mojave County, which is the 5th largest county in the United States. So they look at it and say, cannot be successful. We will, and we don't, and quite honestly, for those people that really want a Costco, they'll look at it and say, they'll drive to Henderson. We're not going to take away from Henderson. The Trader Joe's, we would all love to have it. So for instance, Olive Garden. We've heard the Olive Garden story. They've agreed to come here 3 times, and all 3 times they back out at the last minute.
I understand the last time because of the Darden thing. But, so go back to your answer, because actually.
Actually, it's their
Not to be
answer.
confrontational, but to just kind of go back to my original question, because I
Right.
don't know that you really answered my initial question.
Okay.
I think you answered their question, which is, have we done a persuasive enough job to convince them that it's not 220,000 people in all of Mojave County, but it's 53,000 people that live here all the time. It's another 200,000 people that come here on this particular regular basis who will spend money here, who will support it. Because you could make that argument, by the way, there's a Costco on Maui. There's not 250,000 people on Maui. They made an alternate demographic decision to put a Costco on Maui. There are 4 Costcos on Oahu. There are 2 Costcos on the Big Island. They made an alternate demographic study. So if we've done it and it hasn't worked, then maybe my question is, how can we do it better so that we can accomplish the particular goal and not just say, well, we tried it and it failed and it didn't work, so let's just.
I'm open to that discussion, but once again, you can put all the studies you want together. It is what their studies determine as to what they decide to do. We can tell them, and believe me, Costco knows all the people that come here. They know about our winter visitors. They know about spring break. They know about our summer visitors. We've had those discussions with them. But the demographics, in the end, they say you're just not large enough for us to be profitable. We say, well, what about a scaled down store? Doesn't work for us. Believe me, if we could accomplish that, I would love to. But it isn't me convincing them.
No, it's us having a determined plan to go do something like that and not just say, well, we tried it and it didn't work. Oh,
No, that's not we.
that operation didn't work, I'll just roll over.
Yeah, I hate to, let me just be honest. We've had these discussions with them for years. And you're welcome to try it as well. I'm happy to have you part of it.
A single guy living in Havasu isn't gonna have any effect whatsoever. My point is, if there was a plan and a commission and a group
Right.
of business.
The Economic Development Group put together a study of the community, the wishes of the community, gave demographics of the number of visitors and where they came from. We took all of that to Costco. Was not convincing. I wish I could say we're that close, but I'm just being honest. It wasn't convincing for them.
I'd be happy with an Olive Garden and a Red Lobster.
Well, I also support our local Italian restaurants, so. Yes, ma'am.
We moved here in 2000. There have been, that I know of, 2 active petition drives. We participated in both to get a Trader Joe's here. Every time I go to Henderson, I harass the store manager. We go with 3 coolers, and it takes us a while to check out. Those 2 petition drives went nowhere, in spite of the fact that information was provided about just what you were saying, the winter visitors, the tourism, summer, winter. The Trader Joe's goes by their own demographic or whatever requirements. 50,000 customer base. And what they consider a customer base is not what you are defining as for them as a customer base. You cannot move them off of square one. They have done these kinds of demographic studies in terms of where they locate their stores for years. They are successful because they feel they're successful because their demographics has contributed to their profitability. The last store they opened in Arizona was in Prescott, and it kind of suffered for almost a year before it really began to function the way they had intended or planned. Now, we've pointed out to them that there is name recognition here because we have so many Californians. We've pointed out to them that if they located, say, out near the eye, that people would be coming from Fort Mojave, Bullhead, Laughlin, Kingman, and Havasu, Parker, you name it. It went nowhere. You can go online and request that they consider putting a store here. People have done that. It went nowhere. What they determine as their customer base is what they go by. And they feel they're successful because of it.
So I get it, I feel the passion there.
Yeah.
It's a shame that we can't drill that passion the other way.
Well, here's.
Instead of a passion for why it won't work, a passion for why it will work.
Well, actually,
Thomas Edison,
well,
how
to
many
be-
light bulbs did he build before they worked?
Preston,
And now
that's
we have light bulbs everywhere. You just
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
give up.
you're making it sound like what we did was we went to them and told them all the reasons they shouldn't locate here. We do just the opposite. Let me just kind of in the end, these determinations are made by site selectors. They have site selectors that evaluate different sites throughout the United States. They pick off the ones where they have little chance to fail. Eventually, we'll probably end up with a store of some sort. But why would they pick a spot where they have a higher likelihood of failing than not? So they will pick those
We're not gonna
stores.
fix it here.
Well, I'm just trying to explain why they do
I would
it.
with the fact that it would seem to me that the process is to sit down with them, figure out what they do need to make it successful, then come back to them with some things that would help them along what they've told us that they need to come back to them.
They need people.
And, you know,
They need people.
chicken and egg, so we'll just never have it.
I'm not going to give up like you are. I believe that we're going to eventually get there. But the fact is,
I was the one getting up, it's the other way around.
no, well, what I'm suggesting is that you've got to play their game. And that until we have the right mix of people, it's going to be quite difficult. But that doesn't mean we should give up.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Observation from an old who's been around this all my life. Your ideas at the initial part of your presentation and his actually dovetail.
Sure.
In order to attract these companies, you're going to have the younger people and attract them in as an employment, which broadens the base here in the summer months. Because,
Right.
for instance, when we go to church in the winter, we're turning 100 people easy on any one service.
Right.
We got 12, 14, 20 during the summer because everybody goes back.
Right.
That's what's scaring those companies off.
Right.
When we get the year-round people in here, then find the other companies will line up to come in here and move in.
Agreed.
So it behooves us to keep this plan going, just keep working at it, and eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, when it comes to just our own population base, we do have 53,000. We have enough water to get us to about 95, 96,000. And then we, unless we can acquire more water rights, that's our limitation.
That was a question I had. How, our water comes straight out of the river
Through a well, yes.
through wells.
A well.
Part of the aquifer they're talking about over in Kingman and the minor.
No.
Different aquifer.
Now, we have one major well. You can see it down there at London Bridge Beach. Our water basically comes from the influence of the Colorado River. We have about 28,300 acre feet of water allocation. To give you some idea, Metropolitan Water District for Los Angeles has 4.4 million acre feet annually. But that would give us enough to get to about 95, 96,000 people. We're only using about half our allocation today. Even if they were to declare a drought, the first stage of a drought today, it wouldn't impact us because they cut how much of your allocation you can have. So let's say it's 20%, we would still be above our water use. Now the second one is a real water shortage, but we're still a ways off of that. But, and we would be asked to cut first on those because unfortunately we are fourth water priority versus number 1 or number 2. It was a Arizona compact years ago, and Arizona didn't fare too well. So California fared much better. But California built the dam. Metropolitan Water District, they built the Parker Dam.
Yeah.
And turned it over to the federal government, and they have an agreement on how much water, electricity they get from it. It's a long-term deal. Yeah.
Good
Terry?
morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good
Could you
morning.
give us an update on the hotel out there at the village, please? Thank
Yep, you bet. Okay, we met with the developer this week. I can't remember which day it was. How do I put this?
You want me to take this one, Mayor?
No. They are planning to build a hotel there. Not in the same exact spot in the village as they originally thought. They believe that they might still build one in that spot, but they're going to begin in it's closer. Do you know where the stairs come down from as you're going to go across the bridge and the stairs come down into the parking lot?
Yeah.
They're going to put the hotel there, a hotel there.
Because of the water table?
Yes. The engineering problems that they were having, being that close to the water, they are not insurmountable. You can still build a hotel there. It depends on how much money you want to spend and how long you want to take to get your money back. Their investors, quite frankly, felt that it would be better for them to move the location closer to the highway, that is correct. And still be on their property. And they're going to keep that other spot open for the possibility of the Homewood Suites, or if possibility of additional retail, they'll evaluate that later. But they are committed to a hotel. They're going to get back to us in about 3 weeks to confirm that that's still going to occur. They're going to get their final building estimates, if you will. But all the studies that they have done indicate that a hotel would be highly successful in that area, and that Lake Havasu City is a great secondary marketplace for another hotel. So, we were disappointed. They are very disappointed. They were so excited about putting one there close to the water and whatnot. But when their estimates almost doubled, their investors said, that's a little more than we can, that we can't bite off that much.
Do you know how
Thank you.
high
You bet.
they're expecting to build? How many floors?
I think it was 4 stories, if I remember right.
4 for the new one.
Right.
They're keeping the footprint available for the Hilton product that we were originally looking at, and that's 6 stories.
Right. This one will be 4.
But the smaller hotel in a different spot on that same property will be 4 stories.
Do you have a feel what type of property it is? Is it a home and suite type property? Is it
It will.
a
They're.
hotel type property? What are they?
It's a Holiday Inn Express and Suites,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
105 rooms.
Something like that. This gentleman's had his hand up for a while.
Hi, I moved here in 2014. I have a 5-year-old daughter. And could you tell me the ages of the demographic again for the average workforce in America? Was it 37?
Correct.
And we're what, 50?
3.
It's good to hear we're above average. That's all I comment.
Well, then I'm way above average.
My 5-year-old daughter, since we came here, is raced at BMX track at Sarah
Yeah.
Park. She's played on the softball fields. She's seen wonderful improvements and opportunities at Rotary Park. The Splash Center is amazing. The opportunity she's had to have swimming lessons here and state-of-the-art facility has been amazing. We've been to boat shows, the Balloon Festival. We've been to car shows. We've been to Big Boys Toys that's come in. I just want to say thank you. I've had an amazing experience here with my
Good.
family. And, I'm trying to get my friends to move here, so I appreciate it.
Good. Well, And before you got here, what we were talking about was the additional improvements we're making at Sarah Park. We're going to be building a ball complex there. Engineering design starts this year, and construction starts next year. So, you bet. Yes, sir.
I just want to spin off his positivity. My name's Brent, and I own a fundraising company in Southern California. My daughter lives here. I'm bringing it out here, so if anybody needs fundraising, you know. We're coming out here to help schools, to help stores, to...
We need a bridge.
Yeah. I just know like her dance studio is hurting for money. I know the schools are hurting for money. And really, I want to come and meet you.
Sure.
Every time we move into a new city, I come and meet the mayor and let them know what we're doing. But just kind of figured I'd speak to the room instead. I'm just saying, so if there's anybody here that's involved with schools or sports.
Is there truly nonprofit fundraising?
Yeah, we do it for everything.
I hate to make a comment on your hotel thing, but
Go right ahead.
any Joe Blow off the street can look and say, you're gonna build a hotel right next to the water, and you're not gonna expect there to be a water table problem there?
No, they knew there was a water table issue. It was the cost to overcome it that changed.
Evidently, somebody didn't know something if they didn't plan that cost to begin with.
Well,
soil conditions too.
yeah, I mean, they built in a cost that was substantially higher than a typical Homewood Suites.
Well, I've been a
But it's
electrical contractor for 40 years.
Right, but it still wasn't enough.
And I figure everything in there, so I'm not gonna get stuck with it. You have to figure all possibilities.
They did.
Evidently, somebody didn't.
Well, no, they did, and that's why their investors said it's too much money.
Whatever happened to that hotel that didn't get built right on the island when they poured the foundation wrong?
Well, they didn't pour it wrong. They just decided not to do the hotel, and we made them take it out.
They didn't put footings under the piers.
I don't know what, all we know is they decided not to build that hotel, and we asked them to remove the footings. Chuck?
Where they're decided to build the hotel now, the original hotel was phase one. Is this where they're putting it? Was this a second or third phase that they had planned? Because I remember you saying that they were going to do additional condos or something, hotel rooms. Is this what they're doing?
Yeah,
it's third phase?
Yeah, third phase will probably be coming, phase number one. And it's going to take a little time because now they got to go through all the entitlements. They had entitlements for where they were going to build it. They went through that process. They haven't gone through the entitlements for the other area. They need to do that, and it's going to take a few months.
The other thing I was going to say is I've been coming here for years, and everybody remembers our old Walmart. And everybody remembers the sign out there where the mall is now. Mall coming soon. I don't know how long, I think they had.
It was 15 years.
And it took Wolford to build the mall out there, to get Walmart to expand, make a super Walmart and this, that, and the other. But a lot of the Walmarts you see in areas around built, Yuma, California, there's usually a Sam's Club there. Well, here they didn't do it because they built a Sam's Club in Bullhead because they drew people from Bullhead, Laughlin, Needles, Fort Mojave. It's closer for them to come from Kingman out 68 to walk to Sam's Club than it would be to come here. And that's why they built, that's their thinking. And they drew off all of those cities, where here, it would have been a lot of people that didn't want to come here. They even brought people in from Searchlight. They'd rather go to Bullhead than to go to Henderson. It's closer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this gentleman is correct, though. I mean, we got to continue to push to try to get to those folks, the right people, to try to bring some of these stores in that people want. Our economic development group does go to the various conferences where these people appear. Yeah, when, we're going to have to grow to get there. We need to grow in a managed way. Quite honestly, for us to grow substantially, because we are running out of lots in the original platted area. The only way we're going to get to that next stage is if you, is for the Arizona State Trust lands to begin releasing properties for development. And those properties are between, you know where kind of the, what it would be, North Kiowa maybe, where the houses kind of start, and then the next, you go up to where the airport is, that whole area, that's all owned by Arizona State Trust lands. It is within our city limits. But until they release it for development, you're not going to see a ton of growth. We actually went to them not too long ago and said, where are you at in releasing that? And their response was, when we begin to get requests, we'll consider selling it. But to date, we haven't had any requests. I believe that will occur when people look around and go, gosh, there's no place else to build. Just prior to the recession, 470 acres of that property was purchased by a group out of California, SunCal. And they got all the entitlements, put a $5 million deposit down on the piece of property, and gave it to Arizona State Trust lands. The recession hit, and they let the property go. And so now it's back in the hands of Arizona State Trust lands. SunCal said we're cutting our losses, let the $5 million go. You know, stuff happens. But we'll get there. Steve.
I wanted to say something about the younger workforce that we were talking about. You know, I know how important it is to try to draw a younger workforce to move here, but I think it's as equally as important to try to keep the youth that we have here as well.
Yep.
And one more thing, you know, a lot of the tourist towns in Colorado and stuff boast on the fact that we don't have a bunch of big box stores. We have more of the unique mom and pop type places, bars, breweries, restaurants and stuff. And I know, because I, you know, shop and buy stuff too, but I just don't see people moving here in busloads because we have a Red Lobster and a Costco. You know, we have so many neat things that our area has to offer, but like you're saying, the lake, the mountains, the desert, you know, so I think that to promote our local stuff as much as we can and shop local to help the local businesses expand. And
Well, and you're right on about keeping the youth that we have. You know, that was one of the statements that we made to the judges when we had to go back to North Carolina, is that what was occurring in our city, and by the way, we are not a whole lot different than most rural communities. What was occurring is that the best and the brightest were leaving high school to college somewhere and not coming back. And that we had to find a way to either get them to come back or they go to this ASU and never leave. To be able to do that, for them to come back, they have to have a job. And until we can create that environment where other young entrepreneurs are creating those jobs, and don't get me wrong, we still stress on bringing in companies whenever that opportunity exists. We're working with another one right now. But it's, as this gentleman put it, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg, you know, and so what we decided was, yep, we're going to still go after those other companies, but we got to build our own. We've got to create. We already have a lot of great small manufacturing companies in this town. Most people don't know about them. But we just got to encourage them to double in size. Go 5 to 10, 10 to 20, whatever it is. And then what it does is it creates where you need young professionals. And I know how hard it is to find a young professional. I'm retired now from my CPA firm, but my partners to this day, every day, are continually looking for professionals to come work for them and cannot find them. They just cannot find them. And I know how hard they try to get them. They'll go to Vegas, they'll go to Phoenix. And part of the issue of bringing in young professionals, and again, it's that catch-22, is that if they say, God, I'd really love to live there, but if this job doesn't work out, where am I going to go? I have to leave town because I can't go to another spot. And it reminds me when years ago I was asked to transfer to Sacramento because the belief was the high-tech companies were going to move to the eastern part of California, get out of Silicon Valley. It was too expensive. And I had a client, an engineering firm there, and he struggled for the same reason. And this is Sacramento. He says, it's so hard for me to find good engineers because if they leave Silicon Valley and come to me, they decide they don't like it or for whatever reason it doesn't work out, it's impossible for them to go back to Silicon Valley and buy a home. The only reason that switched in Sacramento is Intel chose to move to Folsom with 5,000 engineers. But they didn't get the workforce from Sacramento. They brought their own. And we're good with that too. We're good with that. Donna.
I just want to feed off of what Steve said. You know, when you have a small, quaint little town, a rural town, which is what we are, it's really important to work with what we have, keep people coming here. I mean, yes, we still need the big box companies. We would love it when people are coming every weekend. But most of the time, those people buy their stuffs in California and then come here. What people that are coming here like is the fact that you can go to a quaint little, you know, downtown area and visit the boutiques and the shops. As a shopper, you know, I'm not going to go to this cute little town and go shopping at Costco. I want to get to where the boutiques and the downtown areas and so forth. And there are a lot of places in like Northern California, you know, the upper Napa Valley, where they won't let big companies, they won't even let a McDonald's come in. They want everything, the mom and pop, the quaint, unique, the different. So it's that chicken and the egg. We just have to take what we have, keep looking to build, but enjoy what we have and work on that.
Right, so, if I could just,
Sure.
not to even respond, but just to make a comment. I
Sure.
completely agree with that, but I would also turn you back 25 years when we didn't have a Home Depot and we didn't have a Lowe's. And the only place you could buy lumber cost about twice what it cost to buy lumber anywhere else, and you couldn't really just get what you wanted. You had to go and take what they had. And so when Home Depot came to town, it was like, whoa, this is great. Even the builders were excited about it, okay? So there is a mix. Yes. You know, and I was in Moab on vacation a couple years ago, and you can't find a damn store in that town. I'm sorry, it's nice. They got a bunch of restaurants and it's great, but they also don't have a lot of industry and there's no kids there. And so if we do want to move to the next level, I've also sat down with ASU as part of the Realtor group, and they have a very clear plan. They want to have 150 students. They're really happy with 150 students. They don't want to grow too much. Where are you going to be? I asked him, I said, what do you want to look like in 5 years? He says, oh, we look pretty good, maybe an extra 30 or 40 students. So it's one thing to say ASU will be a big part of our growth, but ASU has to be part of wanting to be part of that growth too. So I'm not saying the only way to go is big box and put all the small guys out of business, and I'm not saying we should only have chain stores. What I'm saying is we can't not have a way to do both. If we want to have a conversation about how do we bring more people into this town, then we have to look like more of the towns where those people will come from to be part of this town. That's my point.
When it comes to ASU, I would invite you to go see Dr. Crow, who runs ASU.
That's who told me that.
Dr. Crow, well, I can tell you, we went
I was
with,
in the meeting, Jim, you were there. He said, we don't want to be more than 150 students. That was his words exactly.
Short-term goal, I think.
yeah.
5-year goal. What do you want to look like in 5 years? We're happy with 150.
Well, Dr. Crow has basically told us, because I went down to Tempe and we had a conversation with him. He basically said what he wants is probably 1,500 students in 5 years, and he wants a campus of at least 5,000 students, and that they are all in. They are committed to making that happen. and was really looking to the city to make sure we were committed to making that happen. So I can assure you they want to grow. They've got 25 acres there. They have the ability to grow. They've added the dorms by buying that hotel. But if all we're going to do is be 150 students, it's not going to be a very good way for us to grow our workforce, if you will, and have college students stay. But the message to us was 1,500 in 5 years. Yeah, I agree. Terry.
Mr. Mayor, since we're talking about the ASU area, do you know the status of that vacant property in front of ASU?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that property, I don't know if they've closed on it or not.
That I don't know.
But they did close? Okay. A developer from, I'm not even sure where they're from, Texas maybe? I can't remember where they're from. They have bought all that property, and they plan to do several things. There'll be multiple buildings. The ones that are closest to ASU will be kind of a commercial area for small stores, restaurants, cafe, whatever, that ASU students can use, as well as the occupants of the remaining buildings. They plan to, and this is occurring across the United States these days, they plan to build what you might call senior living areas. The first building closest to ASU would be seniors that have decided they don't want their home anymore, but they want to live in a condominium, not have all the troubles of yard care, all the rest of that. Then the next building would be some senior, what I would call assisted or semi-assisted living, and then finally the final building would be full assisted living. And one of the things when they came to us, we said, we want you to talk to ASU, because for us to feel comfortable with this project, we want ASU to feel comfortable that this project works right next to their campus. And they said that's what's happening across the U.S. because many of these seniors go into the campus, are taking classes, are participating in the speaker forums, doing whatever. So, and the fact that they're building commercial right next door so that their students now don't have to walk all the way downtown even helps them more. So,
single-story buildings or?
They're multi-story.
I don't think there's 6.
I'm thinking
6 stories, one of them.
I'm thinking 3.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3, but I don't remember. But they are multiple stories. I don't think there's 6 because you can only go 4 in that area.
Yeah, I was at 4.
Yeah.
That was the question I was going to ask.
Yeah, 4 is max in that area. So, Chuck.
That was one of the questions. The height restriction is when we did the Blue Ribbon Committee about downtown.
Yep.
We can have commercial and then 2 residential or office and residential. That was like 3-story there. Is that 60 feet there? That's where I got the 6.
Yeah.
And on that property, it's 4 stories with 60 feet also.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I was wondering, because I thought it was, as it got away from downtown, it actually took the height down.
Right, but I think in those properties, I think, if I remember right, it's still 60 feet. I mean, I have to double check, but
Okay.
that's.
Well, that's what they said at planning and zoning, so.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, can you give us an update, not saying something, can you give us an update on compliance? And if we are going after the people that are not registering their short-term housing rentals?
I'm gonna let Charlie, because I know where.
That was not brought up, and I know.
Yeah, the vacation rentals you're
The
talking about.
vacation
Yeah.
rental, yeah.
Yeah, can you tell?
Compliance, people registering and business licenses.
I'm gonna let Charlie, because he's been working on that project.
Yeah, a lot of the effort so far has been in putting the systems together, the processes where people can register their homes, certify them, get their licensing and all of that. And you can do all that through the city's website now. If you go to the business section in the city's website at lhcaz.gov, you'll see short-term rentals or vacation rentals. There's a whole brochure of information for both neighbors and the people who rent these homes. And there's also an interactive map that you can click on, and you can see on the map where all those homes are that are registered. And there's also a link to where that you can click on if there is a property that you want us to look at from a code enforcement standpoint. If there's a property next door or behind you that you suspect is a vacation rental or a short-term rental and is a problem for you, if they're making too much noise or whatever, leaving trash, there is an opportunity out through the city's website where you can report that address and we will follow up on it. I can't tell you how many reports we've had. I don't have those stats with me, but I understand that code enforcement has followed up on a few. But it's still real early in the game, and it's really not vacation rental season for us right now. So we expect that later on this fall, we'll see more of an influx of that activity.
And that's why I was wondering if somebody was kind of looking at Craigslist and those other websites that.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
List them and
Oh, yeah.
they
That's how we
are
find
in
them.
compliance with having their business license or whatever they're supposed to put on.
Yeah,
there.
the answer to that question is yes. We are investigating those people who are advertising them to make sure that who's advertising those rentals are on our list of authorized rentals. Yes, absolutely.
And I know they try to get this kind of short-term rental, vacation rentals in par with hotels. Okay?
Right.
The one restriction that I thought they should have put on it is they should have made them sprinkle in their homes, just like a hotel has to.
Well, they're still residential properties, so it's just a category of use.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, Chuck,
But
there
you're
were,
using it as a business.
well, there were a lot of, before we go there were a lot of other things people thought we should do, including outlawing them in its entirety. But the long and the short of it is, there is a new state law this year that Governor Ducey was pushing, and it's a good thing we went in the direction we did, because we'll have to make very little changes to our law, where other people who outlawed them or made other restrictions have to reverse them all. Because the new law says you cannot put too many restrictions on these this shared economy homes or vacation rentals.
And you can't prohibit them.
And you can't prohibit them whatsoever. You can't make them do things that other homes aren't required to do. All you can do is monitor them based on what's good for the health and safety of the neighborhood and that sort of thing. And it allows us to also collect a tax so that we can put them on par with hotels. But, you know, it was a very big item for Governor Ducey. He believed it was a shared economy kind of thing, much as Uber and that sort of thing. In our town, what we were trying to explain to them, and we actually got changes made to the law that would be closer to what we had done, because in many cases in our town, it wasn't a quote-unquote shared economy, meaning I've got an extra room in my house and I want to rent it to somebody to help me with my mortgage payment. What was occurring in our town is investors were buying up the homes, never living in them, and just turning them into hotels in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
Right.
And so we were able to at least have enough restrictions in there to allow us to monitor those homes.
Well, I know that, I realize the law said that you could not ban them, period. But you could regulate them.
To a degree, to a degree.
Okay, but when a person has, say, takes a home and makes it into a assisted care living home, it's like that, do they require sprinklers for that? That's taking a residential property,
Right.
turning it into commercial business.
Yeah,
See,
there are differences, and all I can tell you is that right now we're in compliance with state law. And we could debate what the state law should have been, but those months are over, and we did debate that and at least got some of the provisions that we wanted in it.
Yeah, I'm not against the vacation rentals. I'm looking for the safety of the people. They go in there.
Well, it's more than the safety. It's also, it's the residential neighborhood. the peace and quiet of a residential neighborhood that we were primarily concerned about because our citizens were concerned about it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, having big drums of gasoline in the driveway was so that they could work on their jet skis was not the right answer. But anyway,
It was more about the nuisance
yeah,
factor.
exactly.
And we think we've created an ordinance that allows for people who might be bothered by what's going on at any of these properties to report it, and we'll follow up on it. And now we have an enforcement tool available to the city to where we can actually have recourse to those properties that are a continuing nuisance. We can pull their permit. We can prohibit them from operating that as a vacation rental or a weekend rental. And if they do, there's actual criminal penalties and fines attached to them now that weren't there before. So we have the teeth, we have the hammer now to go after those properties that are a continuing nuisance for their neighbors. And those were the complaints that we were getting about them
And let's be clear, 98, 99% of the vacation rentals, you didn't even know they were vacation rentals. But you always ended up, just like anything else, you get one or two that decide they're gonna not care about the neighborhood or laws or whatever that makes it lousy for everybody else.
And if they're a remote owner, there's somebody who lives in somewhere else and they're not present, then why should they care about what's going on in that property? They're getting their money and
They have to have somebody locally that they.
yes,
They do
and
now.
that's part of the ordinance that we prepared, was the fact that they do have to have a local contact now, and they do have a time period that they have to respond within, or they suffer the chance of those civil penalties and even criminal penalties for not complying.
I'm gonna let this gentleman here, then,
One quickie.
yeah.
Is there a website or a place on your website I can look up the regulations applying to long-term rentals? I have a
we don't really
long-term
have any.
rental next door to me. And there's a property manager, obviously, that handles it.
Mm-hmm.
Their definition of handling and mine are kind of two different things. And I would like to be able to look at what rules and regulations apply to long-term rental. For instance, minor case in point, but to be glaring. Between our two properties were a row of oleander bush on their property with automatic sprinklers. When the new people moved in, they had a landscaper come out who did cut the thing down to ground height. Half the plants died. I was talking to the new renter, and his attitude was, I'm glad they cut them way back because I don't believe in doing yard work. I'm not going to touch those plants one way or the other. The property manager had the landscaper fix these automatic sprinklers, but they were never turned on, so the plants are out there, the oleander out there dying, the property separation is looking worse. I've got to the point where I'm watering it manually by hand to keeping some of those plants alive. Is there a website that would cover regulations on things like that?
A long-term rental is like, a long-term rental is nothing more than having a neighbor.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
and
and
so I was afraid of it.
yeah, there's renter rules, mostly state law, though, I believe, and you probably are more attuned to that. But as far as, you're not going to find regulations that would require your neighbor to keep their plants alive. Now, we have our zoning codes, we have code enforcement for someone who's creating a nuisance for you and whatever they might be doing. We may have local laws that would prohibit it. But what you described is probably not one of them, I'm
I was
afraid.
afraid of it. Okay. I don't want to pick a fight with the people because I know where, to a certain extent, where they're coming from. I also know the property manager is missing a bit by not convincing the property owner to at least keep up the looks of the front of the yard so it rents better. Yeah, but that's
Have you had a
business decision.
Have you had a discussion with the property management company?
A couple times.
They might be sympathetic to your plight.
I
I
can go
don't know.
back and discuss it again, but gentlemen, I don't want to be arrested again.
All right, we're a little bit past time, but let's take one or two final questions.
One quick question.
Sure.
On these short-term rentals, does the city collect a tax just like they do at hotels?
Yes.
That's all.
That's what we implemented. And that was a struggle because to get that, because the state law were trying to say that you can't do that, and we were saying, why? I mean, it's the same as a hotel. And you know, frankly, from a hotel standpoint, that's the only fair thing to do. We just said, let's put them on an equal playing field.
There's actually a couple of taxes there. There's the city sales tax, which is 2% that we pay retail, but there's also the transient occupancy tax, which is the hotel tax. And those tax collections, while they come through the city, they actually go right through the city and back out. In a 75% goes to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the other 25% goes to the Partnership for Economic Development, and those are the funds that they use to operate. So,
Just so they have to pay the same tax hotel, that's all.
yes,
Yep,
they do.
they do.
You're taking away income from the hotel.
No, they do.
Okay, well, yes, sir. One
Okay,
last question.
okay. One question that perhaps you addressed already,
It's okay.
and it has to do with the lake. I've been off the lake for about a year. We had some medical problems down in Phoenix, whatever. But I went up there the other day, and the sandbar is all buoyed off. And number one, I just can't get that one through my head for any reason. But then there was like 15, 18 families that had their boats there. Now they're against the law. They're doing something that's against the law. It just makes no sense to me. You know, you put the
Want me to take
buoys
that
up
one?
there, or why? And,
Well, we didn't put them there.
well, I know,
No.
I realize that. But
The Mojave
I think
County
the
Sheriff's
sheriff
Office closes the sandbar on the holiday weekends. If you look at those buoys, and I know that the Fish and Wildlife Service has actually added more buoys, but if you look at those buoys, printed on the backside of those buoys are the dates that sandbar is closed. But that's just the 3 holiday weekends in the summertime. That's Memorial Day, 4th of July weekend, and Labor Day weekend.
When you're too lazy to police stuff.
No, they can't. No, it isn't too lazy. Hang on a
Out here,
minute.
you've got the families that are in a
Right.
controlled environment, basically.
Well,
But then you
actually-
close it and say, go out and get on the lake and get
Well,
into trouble.
to be clear, it has nothing to do with the sheriff's department being lazy. It's access. Access, safety, absolutely. Before, when the sandbar was open to whatever wanted to occur, they had severe accidents, a stabbing, and the sheriff department had no access to get there. Couldn't get in.
they were selling drugs and they were doing porn movies.
So basically, what they decided was most of that activity took place on certain weekends, and so that's why the buoys. Otherwise, it's fine. But no, it has to do with, I mean, where are you going to, like a helicopter, where are you going to land
They
it?
did with Comfort Canyon 25 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a safety issue, not, we don't feel like we should patrol it. It was really boiled down to that. All right, I know we ran by the time a little bit. I appreciate everyone being here. Next month, first Friday of every month, please come back.